Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
He loved the attention during the pandemic, but now the cat's got his tongue. The science, Dr. Anthony Fauci, is pleading the fifth. Let's dig in. The supposed holy grail of science, the man who told us for years that he is, in fact, the science. He lectured us, censored us, locked us down, and demanded that we trust the supposed experts. Well, he just sat in a U.S. Senate hearing on July 29th and refused to answer question after question. Over and over, Dr. Anthony Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right to silence, something many wished he would have done 6 years ago. And here in Canada, well, we basically just followed suit. Our governments took their cues from this same playbook, this same group of supposed experts, the same shifting guidance that Fauci helped set. Lockdowns, mandates, vaccine passports, the silencing of dissent. We imported it almost wholesale. The same Dr. Anthony Fauci who once said anyone questioning him was attacking science itself, and he just pled the fifth, not once, but dozens of times in a hearing led by Senator Rand Paul about COVID-19's origins, gain-of-function research, and the decisions that upended all of our lives. Remember, Fauci first told 60 Minutes in early March of 2020 that there's no reason to wear a mask.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet. But it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill.
Fast forward a few months and suddenly cloth face coverings were mandatory. Kids were force masked in school, and if you questioned it, you were a selfish grandma killer. Science evolves, so they say, but funny how it always evolved in the direction of more control. Another viral clip was the famous Rand Paul showdown, where Senator Paul pressed Fauci on NIH gain-of-function funding and research at the Wuhan lab through Eco Health Alliance. When things got heated, Fauci told Senator Paul that he didn't know what he was talking about.
Dr. Fauci, knowing that it is a crime to lie to Congress, do you wish to retract your statement of May 11th where you claimed that the NIH never funded gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, I have never lied before the Congress, and I do not retract that statement. This paper that you are referring to was judged by qualified staff up and down the chain as not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about, quite frankly. And I want to say that officially. You do not know what you are talking about.
Yet apparently Fauci didn't know what he was talking about either. After he had denied that his research met the definition of gain of function, government documents and Fauci's emails were released. These Freedom of Information responses were published by The Intercept in September of 2021, followed by later congressional disclosures detailing NIH-funded experiments through Eco Health Alliance that created new bat coronaviruses by combining parts of different bat viruses and testing them in humanized mice. Suddenly, the definitions of gain of function grew complicated, and by November of 2021, a Senate hearing, Fauci himself called gain of function a very nebulous term.
You continue to support NIH money going to Wuhan. You continue to say you trust the Chinese scientist. You appear to have learned nothing from this pandemic. Will you today finally take some responsibility for funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator, with all due respect, I disagree with so many of the things that you've said. First of all, gain of function is a very nebulous term. We have spent, not us, but outside bodies, a considerable amount of effort to give a more precise definition to the type of research that is of concern that might lead to a dangerous situation.
The man who dismissed the lab leak theory as a conspiracy theory, while scientists were privately debating it on phone calls he himself convened, as found in his diary submissions, now he won't answer under oath. And let's not forget, Fauci has already been handed a preemptive pardon. Doesn't that seem pretty fishy? Why does an innocent man need immunity from prosecution before the questions are even asked? Senator Josh Hawley called that out too.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege. You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs, they know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic, you got rich, didn't you? You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally, cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
The interviews where Fauci positioned himself as the living embodiment of the scientific method, if you even thought about criticizing the shifting guidance on natural immunity, on transmission stopping vaccines that didn't actually stop transmission, on school closures, on the origin story, you weren't simply debating policy, you were anti-science. Media amplified that narrative while social media platforms throttled and suppressed dissent. Careers were ruined, families were divided, and today, silence, pleading the fifth. When the public face of the entire pandemic response, the guy who appeared on every screen, who influenced mandates that cost people their jobs, their businesses, their children's development, and in some cases, their lives, refused to answer basic questions about what he knew, when he knew it, and what role U.S. funding played in research that may have contributed to the worst public health disaster in a century. That should demand responses, not blanket invocations of silence. The irony here is that Fauci can claim a constitutional right designed to protect individual liberty while also being the source for so many people to have had their own constitutional rights and civil liberties curtailed with little regard for differing circumstances or viewpoints. Whether one agrees or disagrees with the policies, accountability should not end where public questioning begins. Constitutional protections belong to everyone, and transparency from those who exercised extraordinary influence over the lives of millions is a reasonable expectation. Canadians watched much of this play out here too, with lockdowns, vaccine passports, the Freedom Convoy, and the freezing of bank accounts, all fueled similar questions about public health, civil liberties, and government power. Different country, similar questions, yet here, our own Theresa Tam rode off into the sunset with the Order of Canada. So while this is about Fauci and Tam, there's also the machinery that elevated them, protected them, and still tries to memory hole the contradictions to this day. The same voices that called lab leak a racist conspiracy, that mocked natural immunity, that promised the shots would stop the spread, now shrug when the architect of so much of that policy takes the fifth. Here we are in 2026. Diaries have been released, the documents are out, and the man who demanded absolute trust won't even answer under oath. The science pleads the fifth. And if that doesn't make you demand real accountability, independent investigation, no more sacred cows, no more settled science by decree, then I don't think anything will, because today proved something a lot of us already knew. When the pressure is on, the science suddenly needs a lawyer. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini. Stay skeptical and support independent outlets like Rebel News by ordering from our online store at rebelnewsstore.com. By sporting our swag, you support journalism just like this, so please check out our new designs and don't forget to use code TAMARA10, that's TAMARA 10, at checkout to save 10% off of your total order. All of that at rebelnewsstore.com.